This is a Math to the People video tutorial. Case 4 deals with situations in which we have a non-zero number over 0 or plus or minus infinity over 0. This situation is very similar to case 3 in that we have a rule that says that in this sort of situation where the answer is either going to be plus infinity or minus infinity. The difference between it and case 3 is that in case 3 we could figure out what this, whether it was plus infinity or minus infinity by figuring out where the top and bottom is positive or negative. In case 4, that 0 on the bottom is neither positive nor negative, so we have to use another method to figure out whether it's plus infinity or minus infinity. And this other method is going to be to take some number that's close to the number that x is approaching and plug that thing in for x. And then the bottom will not actually be 0, but it'll be either positive or negative. So to see how this happens, we'll take the limit as x goes to minus infinity of x squared over e to the x. So when we plug in minus infinity for x, we get minus infinity squared over e to the minus infinity. Minus infinity squared is infinity, e to the minus infinity is 0. This is going to give you either plus or minus infinity, but we're not sure which. So now that we're not sure which, what we're going to do is we're going to use some number for x that's close to minus infinity but not equal to it. Let's say x is minus 100. I mean, in some sense it's close to minus infinity because it's a pretty big negative number, bigger than anything we would normally pick. So, now let's take negative 100 squared over e to the minus 100. Minus 100 squared is going to be 10,000, which is going to be a positive number. E to the minus 100 is going to be a really, really small positive number. If you had a calculator, you could calculate exactly what it was, but it's going to be positive. It's not going to be a negative number because e to the any power is positive. Since we have a positive number divided by a positive number, the answer here is going to be positive, which means the limit has to go to positive infinity. So the limit, as x goes to minus infinity, of x squared over e to the x is plus infinity. In our last example, we were dealing with a one-sided limit because there's only one way for x to approach negative infinity, namely from the right. Most limits we deal with are not one-sided limits, but in fact two-sided limits, because there's going to be two ways for x to approach the number in question. In a situation in which we have a case 4 limit which is two-sided, we're going to have to split it up into two different one-sided limits, and in each of those two cases, pick some number that is close to the number that x is approaching, but not quite equal to it. To see how this works, I'm going to give you an example. Suppose we have the limit, as x goes to 0, of x plus 1 over x minus sine x. Now, if we plug in 0 for x, we get 0 plus 1 over 0 minus sine 0. 0 plus 1 is 1, 0 minus sine 0 is 0. So in fact we have 1 over 0, which means we're dealing with a case 4 situation. Now the limit as x goes to 0 is a two-sided limit, because you can either approach 0 from the right or from the left. So what we're going to do is we're going to deal with each of those two one-sided limits separately. So first, we're going to deal with the limit as x goes to 0 from the right. Now in this situation, again we're dealing with the limit as x of x plus 1 over x minus sine x. And in this situation, basically we're going to try to find something which is close to 0 but not quite equal to it, and approaching 0 from the right. One thing we could pick is x equals 0.1. If we plug this in, we get 0.1 plus 1 over 0.1 minus the sine of 0.1. We get 1.1 on the top, and if you do use your calculator for the bottom, you get 0.0002 approximately. This is a positive number, which means the limit as x goes to 0 from the right of this thing is in fact going to be positive infinity. Now let's do the limit as x goes to 0 from the left. In this situation, again, we've taken the limit of x plus 1 over x minus sine x, and we want to pick something that's close to 0 but not quite equal to it and approaching from the left. Say x equals minus 0.1. So if x equals minus 0.1, we plug that in for x, and we get minus 0.1 plus 1 over minus 0.1 minus sine minus 0.1. And the top is going to give you 0.9, and the bottom is going to give you minus 0.0002, approximately. Now here we have a positive number over a negative number, which is going to give you something negative. So in fact, this limit is going to go to minus infinity. Now, because the limit from the right goes to positive infinity, the limit from the left goes to negative infinity, the limit as the whole can't exist, because in order for the limit, the two-sided limit to exist, the limit from the right and the limit from the left need to be the same. So the limit as x goes to 0 of x plus 1 over x minus sine x does not exist. So that's it for that case in the table. Now it's time to pick which video you want to see next. Click on one of the 7 buttons to go to the video for that case.